Welcome everyone to another episode of Time for BL. This is the podcast where we review movies, TV shows, novels, and comics, all in the boys love genre. Everyone's asleep and I'm probably supposed to be in bed as well, but I've decided that I'm going to take this time to do my review of Hard Sell by Hudson Lin. Hard Sell is an Asian American queer romance that stars Danny Ip and Tobin Locke as the two main characters in this book. Yes, so the series is actually surrounding the Jade Harbor company. Give me a second. I'm going back to his page to remember what it is, because this is all off the dome. So yeah, Jade Harbor Capital series. This is Hard Sell that follows Danny, who works for Jade Harbor, and Tobin, who is his best friend's Way's little brother, who he had a one-night stand with, hadn't seen again, and now they've reconnected as they both work on the same project, basically on opposing sides. The entire story is very adorable, very cute. It holds a lot of culture in there that Hudson Lin definitely has put in from his own experiences, I feel, a bit. Even though I don't know Hudson Lin, I would probably have to read more of his stories or their stories to see how they write them, because this is the first one I've read. I'm definitely reading Going Public next, because it's also in the Jade Harbor Capital series. But yes, let's talk about the story. So Danny is conflicted about pursuing a relationship with Tobin, even though everything feels right. They just work together, they feel comfortable, they melt in each other's arms, but Tobin's family has been like family to him. Tobin's parents basically paid for Danny to go to college, and even though Danny has paid them back tenfold as he has become a millionaire, he still really feels like he owes them a lot. And he feels like dating their son, especially their baby, the youngest son, is really a disservice to the family, as if he's taking more than he deserves from them, in a sense, which is sad for Tobin, because he's just treated like nobody cares. Everybody's like, Tobin is a child, and Tobin is a grown man, like always having to prove to his family he's a grown man. With Danny, one of the reasons he's holding on so tight to Tobin and Way and their family, well, mostly their parents, is because he has lost his mother. And throughout his whole life being raised by a single mother, he spent most of his time with Way and his family, went on trips, family trips with them, like is on pictures on their wall, basically grew up with Way and Tobin. So he feels like he's taken advantage of the family by having a relationship with the youngest son, who obviously has so much love, so much protection. And one of the persons he fears the most with knowing about it is Way, because, you know, that's Way's baby brother. Like, how would Way view the whole thing? So they meet as they're working with Westech. Westech is basically going under. They're bleeding money, and Jade Harbor wants to just buy the company outright, flip it on its head, and then sell it so they can make a profit, while Tobin's company Paradigm has been called in as a consultant to basically fix the company, find what the issues are, and fix the entire thing and get the company back out there. So yeah, they're on opposing sides of this whole thing, with what they're doing to get their payday. Danny's under a lot of pressure because he hasn't been working to the potential that he was working at before with the company, with Jade Harbor. Harbor. So he has a lot on the line, mainly his career, while for Tobin, this is his first account that he's handling, that he's in charge of. So he needs to prove to his company that, you know, they can trust him with more. And also, like, he wants to grow in the company. He wants to get the promotions. He wants the big chair and the big seats and the big bucks. So he's working towards that as well. With Tobin and Danny, it's mentioned throughout that Danny, like, everybody treats Tobin like a kid. Everybody has this whole, we must protect Tobin. And when his parents are calling him, they're like, have you eaten? How was your English? Because he it's mentioned that he had to do English as a second language classes as a child. How's your English? Is this troubling you? Did you ask your boss about this? Like, all this, like, so much pressure on him. And Danny has been the only person who has always just treated him as an equal. So their relationship also has that, where it's always been, even though he's always been Way's little brother, Danny's never treated him like Way's little brother. And now here they are as adults attracted to each other. I actually really enjoyed everything about the story. I don't think I can think of anything I would have changed really in the story. I think that, especially portraying them coming out, in a sense, where Danny had to finally tell Way the truth about why Tobin is calling him and all that stuff. I thought that whole thing was just really I thought it was a good way to kind of bring the relationship out into the open. Way, I felt like, though, wasn't necessarily being a protective older brother. He was just being the kind of person who has to take control of everything, which they kind of mentioned the fact that he wants to be in control of everything. So he is he actually does admit to it too. He has compartmentalized that this is my best friend, this is my brother. So the idea of best friend and brother, them hanging out without him and them in this relationship, is like, no, you're my best friend and you're my little brother. You guys don't mix with each other like that. And him having to realize that Tobin is an adult and Tobin can make his own decisions. There, of course, is a lot of mention of the fact that Tobin has to constantly remind everyone that he's an adult. He lives on his own. He has a job. He does this. He does that. And he's constantly having to say it. And it, of course, gets thrown back in his face when someone says, oh, let me guess, you're an adult. And you're always trying to prove you're an adult, but here you are acting like a child. You know, those kind of things getting thrown back at him. But he constantly has to prove it because no one is giving him the chance to show that he's an adult, in a sense. Everyone kind of has think of it this way. There's a kid in your life, could be a cousin, it could be a friend's child, anybody, but in your head they're one age. Like, for example, there's one kid in my head. She is 8 years old. She will always be 8 years old. She's a grown adult woman with a job, but in my head she is 8 years old, because when I met her, she was this sweet, innocent 8-year-old, and she'll always be that child to me. And that's what Tobin is experiencing from his family. In their head, he's still the baby. They still have to protect him, even though he paid his own way through college, and he has to, I didn't use my parents' money. His parents are really wealthy. I didn't use my parents' money. I paid my way through college. He has to show that I have a job and I get paid and I can pay for my own meal. Like, things like that constantly, because for his entire life, he's been taken care of, and probably in a sense for him controlled, and him being able to do everything on his own means there is no one controlling him. This is all on him. And he is just so happy to break away, even though he loves his family, just so happy to break away so he can be an adult and live as an adult. And it makes sense, because you get the sense of, especially when he goes back to his family for Thanksgiving, that if he lived at home, he would still be expected to live in his parents' home in his old bedroom. His mom would probably be making breakfast for him every morning. His dad would be saying he'll drop him off at work and saying, hey, let me ask your boss for time off for you, stuff like that. Like, you get that kind of like feeling from the story and the way the parents are written, especially when you really get to see a lot of the parents, that they definitely love their child and they would do anything for their kids. I love the parents. They're awesome. Every time though they said Aya, all I could think about was Uncle Roger, and I was just like, I'm not supposed to be laughing at this scene, but I'm laughing because now I'm thinking of Uncle Roger with the Aya. Anyway, the worst character in the story is, of course, Cyrus West. He is the worst character, but to me, his ex-wife, oh gosh, what's her name? Marlene? Let me go. I can't remember her name. 1 second. Screw it. I can't remember her name and I don't have it written down. But Mrs. West, I would argue that she's also kind of a villain of the story. Yes, she is the head honcho in the end, and she's better than Cyrus West in a lot of it. Like, everyone likes her more, and it's obvious why. But like, she's still horrible. Like, she didn't stop being horrible, and that's kind of one of the things that it kind of talks about, where when you work in the financial world, can you be a good person? When you work in capitalism, can you be a good person? That's one of the questions kind of asked by Tobin when he is confronted by Monica's girlfriend, who is angry at him for dating an equity trader. Because he is a trader. He works in capitalism. He must be a horrible person. And it's like, yeah, that's his business. So yeah, I would argue that she's also a bad guy. It's just like, you gotta choose which. It's one of those situations where it's one bad guy is nicer than the other bad guy, and that's kind of it. That's what it came down to. So yeah, Mrs. West, or the soon-to-be former Mrs. West, is just awesome. And I guess that's a spoiler. I'm sorry. That's a spoiler. I won't say why she's horrible. I hope anyone else who decides to read it can see why I think she is just as bad, but not worse than Cyrus. Like, she's just as bad for covering it up, basically, and only doing what she did when it was gonna benefit her in the long run. When you get to there, just read it. Yeah, if you read it. So yes, if you're wondering, yes, I suggest reading this 100%. After reading this, I really love the writing style that was chosen. I kind of wish it was more clarified. Like, no, that's the wrong word. So with the story, we get both their perspectives. Like, it will go back and forth from Danny to Tobin. It wasn't in the first person, it was all in the third person. Well, no, it's not even in the third person, it's all narrated. An invisible narrator. But of course we'll hear what they're thinking, what they're going through, and them trying to figure out what everyone else is thinking about them, and all that. We get to see a bit of everyone's feelings here and there, but the main focus, of course, are Danny and Tobin, and their thoughts and everything they're going through and what they want. And I kind of wish it was more split, because especially when they're together, it's Danny thought this. Tobin looked at him and wondered what he thought. That kind of thing. Tobin could see the gears turning as Danny thought that, things like that. And I wish it was kind of more separated, and maybe I'd have to reread it to see maybe if I'm off a bit, but I kind of wish it was more separated, where this chapter only focused on Tobin and Tobin's thoughts, and like even if it's from a narrator's perspective, and then the next chapter will only focus on Danny and Danny's thoughts and what Danny's going through. Yes, they had a lot of separation where we could really focus on each person, but I wish it was more, especially in those scenes where they're together, where we know we're seeing everything from Tobin's perspective, and then the next chapter we're seeing everything from Danny's perspective, if that makes sense, because even then it can kind of recap what happened and what they thought about what happened. What is something that I wish was not included? I know, but I can't say it because it's a huge spoiler. There's only one thing I wish wasn't included. I wish it hadn't been what it was, because if it hadn't been what it was, it wouldn't make me go ugh. But it also works to the plot line to make you hate the character Cyrus West even more. So if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. It works into you hating him even more and realizing how much of a scumbag he is. But Tobin brings up a really great point about like why wasn't this taken to where it should have been taken earlier, because now the people involved have probably moved on, and it's really was like, yeah, I agree. Why do you have this and why do they not have this? Please. I'm trying not to put too many spoilers in this one, because there isn't that much spoilers in this. Like, this is a very straightforward romance. There is, of course, a bunch of sex in it, because it is a romance. This is a straight up romance novel. And so I'm trying to leave out as much as possible, because a lot of the twists and turns, some of them are very predictable. Some of them, like, you know how it's gonna end. And of course, I wasn't too surprised by the ending. I was kind of like, oh, of course, that makes sense, I guess. Because, of course, we're gonna fast forward to the future and we're gonna see. I actually imagined something else. I thought, because of certain talks, I thought it was gonna jump to something else, but it actually stayed in the realm of what I expected for the ending. So yes, it's predictable, but most romance stories are predictable, and I like that it's predictable in that it just having the same 1-2 beats as any romance story that's out there. And because even though it has those things, especially mainly with Cyrus West, that I was like, it didn't stray so far that I was just completely out of it and like, I don't want to hear this story. Because even like the scene that surprised me, I knew something was gonna happen. Not gonna try not to give too much away either, but when Danny was driving away from the ex-employee of Westek's house, I knew what was gonna happen, but what happened was not what I expected to happen. Basically, I expected Danny to be taking an ambulance ride, but I didn't expect him to not be in a gurney while taking an ambulance ride. That's as much as I will say about that. So that also went exactly kind of in a sense, like everything goes at the pace that I expect from a romance story, but the way it's done is not what I predict will happen in the story. That's a great way to say it. Favorite character overall in the entire book, other than the parents? Probably Roy. Yeah, probably Roy. Because to me, Tobin, yes, he is an adult and he's working, he's definitely going to go places in his company and all that stuff, and he's shown that he's a hard worker, but he does have some naiveness to him a bit, and Danny is just too proud. In the end, of course, he has to get rid of some of that pride and really no, because he's still a millionaire. But he does have to like release some of that ego a bit. But he's still a millionaire. He still has it. Like, let's not. Do Danny and Tobin work together? To me, definitely yes. The only thing I wasn't sure, I might have to go back to the book and read again. I'm not sure what the age gap is, and I'm trying to remember if they mentioned the age gap. I know they mentioned that the first time they got together, Tobin was 19. So there. Ooh. One thing that I loved, because I was worried about it being an Asian American story. It takes place in Canada, by the way. Canadians are in North America, so it's American. But one thing I was worried about it being an Asian American story, a lot of times when you watch Asian stories that talk about same-sex relationships outside of Thailand mostly, when family members, of course, know that someone is gay, it's very negative. Everything about it is very negative. In this, we see Tobin being a beautiful, beautiful young man who puts on his eyeliner, gets his makeup on. He put on his mascara, and he's like, all right, I'm looking good. Let me do my hair nice, put on my outfit, and I'm out. And his family is fully accepting of that. And I love that. It's just showing a fully accepting family. A lot of times when you read a lot of Asian American stories that talk about same-sex relationships or have a character who is gay in it, it kind of depends, but a lot of them go more trauma than loving and caring and acceptance. This is definitely loving, caring, and acceptance all the way through and through, and I love it. Because every negative reaction that they get has nothing to do with the fact that they're gay. It just has to do with the fact that they are basically so close to gay. That's really it. The most negative reaction you get is the fact that, you know, this might destroy the relationship that they have as a family unit, in a sense. Because when Tobin said he is getting into Danny's car, I was just like, and his parents aren't gonna ask any questions about this? You don't think mom and dad are gonna want to know why you got into Danny's car? But you got exactly what you wanted afterwards. And yeah, the story in itself, as far as the characters, and like, this is just a really easy story to read. It's a really happy story to read. The most homophobia that you see is from a character we're supposed to hate anyway, so it really doesn't matter. It just shows that he's a scum, because he is scum. I was gonna say the diversity in the story is really nice, but here's the thing. For me, anytime the main character is not in the majority, they are in the minority, I don't care what the diversity looks like. Because I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say this, and a lot of people might not like it, but it's true. There are so many stories out there about cis, gay, white, masked men that, as long as it's not about them again, I'm happy, because I want some new stories. I want something different, especially when we're talking about American or British stories. Like, I love Heartstopper that just came out, but my favorite character if you listened to the Heartstopper review last week, I'm pretty sure I said it in there. My favorite character is Elle. Like, she, the second, everything about her I love. Now, I don't think I mentioned it in that one, but it did not go past me that no, because in the book she's actually Egyptian, so it doesn't count. Forget what I was about to say. There's like a whole thing where in a lot of shows they put the black character and the Asian character together just because they're black and Asian, and that's kind of it. Current culprit on TV, I haven't seen if they're still together, but from the last time I watched it, Nancy Drew. Like, doesn't matter if they have things in common or not. Black, Asian, they'll fall in love. End of story. But this one doesn't count because in the comic she's actually Egyptian. So yeah, Heartstopper, I love it, and my favorite character was Elle. I wanted to see what was going on with her. I also love seeing more of Tara because you don't see much of Tara in the comic. Same with Elle. They're not really in the Heartstopper comic because the focus on that is Charlie and Nick, and there's more going on with Charlie and Nick than them just their relationship, but actual things that pertain to things like mental health and family and stuff like that. That's really interesting. A lot of the stories out that are talking about gay men or relationships or stuff that but the point is the main character is a white gay man. He is masked and cis, and his life is horrible until it's not, because it turns out it was all in his head the whole time, and I would have rather hear from a character who is actually going through some shit, because it's not him. And that's why I love this book, because it's about two Asian American men falling in love. It talks about family. It talks about like this idea of needing to present this thing, to present this character of yourself, basically, and this need to excel. It talks about with Tobin, his need to show independence. It talks about Danny and his need to feel like he needs to always show gratitude for everything that the Locke family has done for him. And I love the inclusion of all that. I think this book is amazing. So you need to read it. Yes. I don't care if you get the audiobook and listen to it in your car like I did, or if you buy the book and read the full book like I did. Whatever you need to do to read this book. It is amazing. It's a great story, and I am actually going to be getting the next book. So I think the next book in the series actually is not Hard Sell, but Closing the Deal. So the next one I'm looking at is Closing the Deal, and then the next one is Going Public, and these are all in the Jade Harper series. I found them on Hudson Lynn's website. I will put the link to that in the description box, so make sure you click on that and check it out. You can shop from the site as well. Now, that is it. That is my review. So something happened. Basically, I decided to go back and look again at something, because I was like, I thought Going Public was the second book, or is it the other book that I can't remember anymore? Anyway, so first of all, you can get a signed paperback of Hard Sell for $9.99 on Hudson Lynn's website. Just wanted to let that be known. And also, remember I said my favorite character from Hard Sell is Ray? Well, I decided to go read the description of Going Public, and it follows Ray, Raymond Chow's. So I'll actually be reading Going Public next. That's the one I'm going for next, because yes, oh my gosh, I love Ray. Ray is the friend you want on your side, because he will destroy somebody for you. You just ask him and he'll destroy them. Destroy them, Ray. Have a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, whatever it is, wherever you are.